I saw you, we are sing and having fun. I still mine on you, and you, some of the days I'm done. It's a time or an era where social media plays a really important role in helping inform communities about things that are trending, things that are of interest to a specific community. And of course, COVID-19 has proven to be one of the most impactful happenings across the world since 2019 December. So we are at this point where in the UK, as of today, 10th of April, we have had just on today's count, 900 plus people die in a hospital or in hospitals across the UK from COVID-19. In Cameroon, where I come from, we are talking about 800 plus cases with about approximately 10 dead, and 40 odd numbers have been cured or have responded to treatment. I am trying to get in touch with people who across the board are managing, to face the pandemic, work with healthcare professionals, with media people, with people who have influence across the media to make sure that the narrative is accurate and it's consistent across the board. We can't be held responsible for disseminating information that is not important, that is not accurate, that is not factual, and that is detrimental to our communities. Hence, I decided to do this podcast, this VideoCast, where I get people onto a call and kind of sense check with them their understanding and my understanding of where the world is at, where we all are at, and how we are dealing personally with the pandemic. So I am having these sessions with different people across the board, across the world. I have found it really difficult speaking to Cameroonians in particular because of the internet connection, nothing more. So it's really hard to see how Cameroonians are struggling to be part of the conversation. But the people I have spoken to will give you great insights and understanding about how in their various small communities, they are also coping and dealing with COVID-19. Together, if we send out the right messages, we will definitely be able not just to plank the curve, but also to help our communities fight the spread of COVID-19. Let's get to this session and see what the guys have to say. I'm really curious to know how you guys are coping in Cameroon, I swear. Oh, Jean-Paul is coming in. Let me let him in.
I went to town. I just got back now.
Frame, thanks for joining.
Hi,
You managed. Hi.
Thank you.
So we're almost all here. There's Dr. Christabel is stuck in traffic. Benjo Baba.
Good.
You're good too. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for making it, making it to the show. I know today is a hectic day across the world. I don't know if it's bank holiday for you guys, because today is bank holiday in the UK, so we're not working. Even if we're home, we're not working because it's Good Friday. Is it the same for you guys?
Yeah, it's a holiday here in Cameroon, Good Friday.
Okay.
Although there are no services being held all around the country because of this lockdown.
Yeah.
So, but we just leave it like a holiday, like any ordinary day, because we will not at least participate in the solemnity of Good Friday. No crowds should gather in order to keep away the COVID-19 stuff out.
Cool. Okay. So how are we all feeling? I mean, I have been in a place where I'm calling on friends, I'm drawing in on friends, I'm sensing people out on social media, I'm looking at your post, I'm looking at the intent behind your post. I've seen so much passion come through about not just COVID-19, but as Cameroonians, I've seen so much passion come through all of you guys for COVID-19, for Cameroonians to have the right messages and to say the right things. And for you, Ephraim, I actually felt very, very, I literally almost got emotional with your post a couple of days ago, that's why I reached out to you and said, can you just talk to us a bit, because you're on the front line. It feels like you're in the battlefield and you see everything that's happening firsthand. That's why I really wanted to have a chat with you. Penjo, it's your passion. Like, I can see that even though you and I are comedians. So we're one of the 3 or 4 people out of 10 who are still laughing in COVID-19. Like, all our post is humor. But I guess it's fine to have a balance of humor and facts that actually would make people feel a lot better and not just make everything look so dreary and so bad. And Jean-Paul, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like you're the anarchist. Like, you literally want to bring down the world with your post. It's so grim, it's so critical, but I like it because it gets people thinking. Like, it gets people to ask questions, and that's why you caught my attention. I'm like, I need to speak to this guy one-to-one and ask him what's going on. Like, what is your immediate concern about how Cameroon is handling COVID-19? I'll start with you, Jean-Paul. Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you took notice on what I was doing, and yeah, you're right to say it's very critical of the government, but in a very technical way too, because we really don't enjoy a lot of freedom of speech. So sometimes you really have to code in what you're saying, so that you should not raise eyebrows. COVID-19 with us here actually is a new stuff. It's a whole new stuff. We started hearing it like some rumors, like some foreign news happening in China, and later on it took up in Europe, and then we started hearing rumors too that it was not a black man's affair and that it was not attacking black people. And then, wow, it came knocking. It came right down here, and all of us were scared. And we actually know how it is down here, COVID-19 comes to Cameroon at a time when Cameroon has so many challenges, and therefore they take things. You see, let me take the issue of the church. They tend to believe more what the pastor says as the gospel truth, so they don't really believe in science and facts. So if it is not an evangelical saying, something like that, a prophecy or a revelation, they will not take it seriously.
Yeah, I can understand.
That is one aspect. Another aspect is that there are deep crises too. The war in the northwest and the southwest. Mm-hmm. There is widespread poverty. There is a political crisis after the presidential elections of 2018 that makes people not to really have confidence in the government. So what the government says, they don't really take it. So when this COVID-19 issue came up, I said to myself, I'm a farmer, I'm an engineer. I said to myself, this is time to talk to the people. This is time to contribute in one way or the other.
Yeah.
At the same time, making the people to know that there is a danger, we need to do something by ourselves, and at the same time, making the people to hold the government, because we already know that the government is always as slow as it is. The machinery of the government turns so slowly. So I needed to contribute in a way to make the people to push harder and to believe that they can get something from this government. That's why I took.
Thank you so much, Jean-Paul. I could sense it in your dialogue, in your discourse online, in all of the stuff that you were posting, that you were really clamoring for attention to be heard and for the right things to be said. And I don't know how that's going down, but I'll come back to ask you, do you feel people are listening, and do you feel they're asking the right questions? Ephraim, sorry, I have to come to you because I know you're at work, and I know for whatever reason you might drop out in a minute if need be. So yeah, let's talk about this hypothetical scenario, right?
Yeah.
The lockdown doesn't happen in Cameroon. Let's just say for some reason the lockdown doesn't happen, because I think formally it hasn't been applied properly. In other countries like South Africa, in Sierra Leone, I have seen the leaders come out and advocate and had, media presentations, press releases, all sorts of ways to speak to the population about the lockdown. That hasn't really happened in Cameroon. So let's say hypothetically, the lockdown doesn't happen in Cameroon and everyone carries on as normal. As someone who's in the front line at the moment, and you see that this infection, this pandemic is actually very, very, very catastrophic, what do you think would happen to Cameroon? Or there's two questions. What will happen? Or do you think we could build a herd immunity, like a group immunity, where suddenly, yes, the virus is there, but people aren't dying as much as, you know, we anticipate? What, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, because I know Cameroon would not respect the protocols of the lockdown. So what do you think will happen? First hand.
Answering the first part of your question, is very scary. It is very scary. I don't know how much I can stress, but what I see day to day here, patients, and what we've gone through so far, if I apply the same scenario back home, I'm not sure, but watching the news and going on Cameroonian sites every day, that's what I do when I wake up to see what is going on. I'm encouraged, but I will also say the world is so small now. I know our leaders are not doing a lot, but most people back home are watching TV, they are on the internet, they're getting the pictures that they are watching, the news, CNN, and most international news sites or stations. They are giving them chills just that by itself. So, I mean, I have people calling me from back home and asking me what is going on and hiding at home without me even telling them, giving them instructions. So you can understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Also, the Ministry of Health back home, when comes out every day and give these numbers of the number of cases, I know with the limited resources that they have as well to test people, so that probably doesn't give a real picture of what is going on. So we don't really know who is sick and who is not, which is also a concern for me. But I will trust the government with a pinch of salt too, because the numbers of those that are dying, we don't actually know if those that are passing away at this time, if most of them are
COVID-related.
Infected. Yeah, infected with the virus. So that's also something that is also concerning to me. But if I go with the numbers back home, what they are projecting every day, I sleep at night a little bit knowing that it's not infecting people as much as I'm scared that the disease will be spreading.
That's my problem. I feel like the numbers are not accurate because we're not testing effectively in every province or town in Cameroon.
Of course, we don't have the means. We don't have enough testing, and most of the testing, if not all, is done in Yaoundé, just at Central Pasteur, which is very, just thinking about that just kills me. I talked to my mom yesterday. My mom lives in, we grew up in a little town near Kumba, in Tombe, and everything is fine.
Wow.
Everything is fine.
But yeah, it's possible, because a town in Italy, a town just slightly outside Italy called, I think, VO, it's VO.
Yeah.
They tested, like a pilot test happened in that town. And I think up to 60% of the population were infected. They sort of had the virus, but they were asymptomatic. So no one showed signs, nothing happened. So what they did is they isolated all of that town. They isolated people who were infected, isolated people who weren't. And that's where the whole study proved that if you quarantine people, the infection doesn't cross over. Like, they didn't see those numbers growing, but the people who were also sick had 100% recovery rate. So that's the kind of thing I want to hear that Cameroon is trying to, but I can't sense it. And Penjo, you've been on the ground, you've been in Cameroon, you've been a media person, you've been one of the top, top cameramen, photographers in Cameroon. You work with a lot of people, you travel across Cameroon, you have basically all of your businesses on the road to and forth. Like, I literally see you doing so much stuff across Cameroon. How is that impacting you now? And do you think this lockdown is actually being respected?
Well, thank you again for this for the opportunity and for the program. I think when this problem started, it was just like somebody said, it was just like we were seeing it like a joke, like quarantine, and we were going about project, our work, and things like that. I have projects for March, April. And
we're struggling with your sound and your visual. Is it just me, guys? Can you see Penjo?
So I was saying, like somebody said there, that when it started, we were all seeing it as like it's not going to come here. And at the end, we started hearing 1 case, 2 cases in Cameroon.
Yeah.
And of course, it was still like it's going to end now. But I was following up in other countries, not only Cameroon, and seeing how it can happen in Cameroon. But then affecting our businesses, especially me, myself, I had so many jobs in March. And I will tell you, from the 18th of March, I think I've gone downstairs from my house just 2 times.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Just 2 times. And so it's not because I want, it's also because when I follow up how the thing can get to people,
yeah,
I happen to be scared knowing how we move around in Cameroon, in towns, in everywhere. So I try as much as possible to be indoors and advising people to stay indoors. So it has affected a lot in our businesses, our income, especially our income, because the little that we save, I mean, I would say we have spent all of it, and now we're looking at how we can move forward. But at the same time, when I see people, so I was saying that due to looking at business, especially myself and many people, when I see people saying that the government, of course, we will want to see the government lock down, like people stay at home. But at the same time, you're looking at how people can cope, because if the government is locking down, they will have to do like other countries are doing, like assisting the citizens in one way or the other. But here, it's difficult because the government itself, they will not know what way to start. And so it's difficult for them to say that people should stay at home and nobody should move. So it's going to cause problems. And at the same time, people themselves, they are not even taking it seriously out there. Like when you go out, you don't even see that. They feel it. Like you see a bar, a snack bar, drinking place, people still go and sneak in and they are drinking inside. So it's not only the government, it's also about our conscience, people, how they reason, how they see it. So that's why sometimes I post my things and talk about it and let people see, to know that it's dangerous. But then, of course, Cameroonian, we have some kind of a way that we do things that we don't trust, we don't believe in anything sometimes. But when it hits us like it's hitting us now, although people are still asking that, they are calling numbers, like figures are rising, but we don't see. Many people think that these numbers are not true. Some say they are not even enough, like there are more numbers than this. And some who say they don't believe that they are even up to this number. So, but for me, I will only advise everybody I keep advising everybody to, no matter what you believe, just first of all, stay safe and stay at home. Try to avoid going out, because you don't know, since we don't know anything, you just know that there's coronavirus, which is real, because people are dying in other countries. So I think it has affected a lot in our businesses, our daily lives, a lot. Seriously.
It's painful to see, painful to watch. Like I said in the last show, that I see the Minister of Health doing a lot of tweets about what's happening, how many people are contaminated. Jean-Paul, is it like 800 by this morning? 800 people?
803 tested positive so far. We have 12 deaths recorded so far. And we also have good news on the people that are healing. As of yesterday, we were talking about 61. This morning, the minister informed us again that we have 37 more that have recovered among the 43 that were quarantined in the Olembe quarantine center. So it means that the number is increasing. We should be something about 100, 102 that have healed so far.
So Cameroon is actually saying that treating patients of coronavirus, is that the narrative?
Well, it's difficult to put it that way. From my own observation, I think that there is a little bit more resilience, more the population is showing that they're kind of resisting this virus. Because we had very acute cases, people that we have to put on ventilators, or even those that have to be put on simple oxygen. We have not had those kind of cases. The ministry talked about 17 as of now out of the 800 that have been tested, and a majority, more than 90% of them, have not even they have not even shown symptoms. So I think, from my own observation, that the population is showing a lot of resilience towards this virus. That's my own personal observation. Although when you read the tweets that the minister makes, he says the people have been cured. Curing means they have responded to treatment, have been administered treatment, and they have been treated. So I don't know if their immune system has just been activated as it got infected with the virus, or it is really thanks to the medication that was given to the people. So those are things that we really need to, I think it's the scientific community that really has to talk about that.
It's frightening, the way we carry about sort of scientific research in a place like Cameroon, for one, because data informs all of the things we do. Now,
Exactly.
if they were tracking every medication they had given these people, they were tracking every change in the maybe in the signs, in the symptoms over a period of time or day, all of this sort of monitoring and tracking and tracing and noting stuff would have been evidence enough to justify that this particular drug at this particular time or stage of the infection cured this person. Do you see what I mean? Like a correlation. It's just too random. I feel like they're just saying anything.
Yes, exactly. And they don't just say it, they don't even have the data to give. Because if you look at what happens in Europe, they try to look at what was the precondition of this patient, what was he exposed to, how was his immune system, and what treatment did we administer, and how did the person respond. Here, all we get is numbers, and they are as vague as you don't get the ages. You don't get the preconditions of the patients involved. Even the cases that died, you don't know what was their precondition before they got infected. You don't even get any information concerning the gravity of the situation before they died, and so on and so forth. So you just get up one morning, you get a figure that 24 has been cured, 40, and so on and so forth. So that is how it is. And some people are even raising questions, were these people even sick in the first place? Everything is so
questionable.
Questionable. It's a big problem down here with us because data is never available. They don't even gather it, and even when they gather it, they don't communicate. Just this evening, the minister tweeted again that the governor of the littoral fully recovered from the COVID infection. No one knew that he was infected. They didn't tell the population. And you begin to see how the government is managing at its own level, trying to cut and paste where it favors the government, and also trying to manage a very delicate population, because as I must tell you, the population of Cameroon, it is not like you can compare to anywhere else in the world. It is very, very particular.
Bearing in mind, we've not even come out of it. There's like a southern Cameroon problem going on now, and there's all of the conflict, all of the displaced people, everything else that's happening. You just feel like the pressure. This is just the worst time that this COVID thing has brought on bear, to the Cameroon population and to the Cameroon government to expose a lot of the weaknesses of the country. But speaking to you, Ephraim, I see how important it is for medical practitioners to have all of their PPE, like personal gears to protect them from this infection. I see how people go out of their way to make sure that nurses have masks, they have gloves, they have the protective outfit, I've seen basically you guys are going to the moon. I've never seen people dressed that way, just, to protect yourself from the virus. And you're telling me that Cameroon, what level of equipment do they have to be able to manage this virus without getting infected? From a nurse and medical person's point of view, Ephraim, explain this to us a bit. Why all of this protection is essential?
All this protection is very essential. But let me just go back. A few years ago, I went back to Cameroon when I was getting married. So we had to go do the genotype testing at a very reputable lab, hospital clinic in Douala. It's one of the scariest things I ever saw. So I went there with my fiance, and the nurse pulled up this guy trying to draw blood on us without gloves on. It was scary to me. So I was like, what is going on here? And he was like, oh, this is how he was speaking in French. Oh, c'est comme ça qu'on fait ici. I was like, no, you're not going to draw blood on me without gloves.
Oh my God. That's Cameroon. Oh my God. I was
like, this clinic, we paid so much money. He was insistent. I was like, oh, fortunately, my wife now knew the doctor and gave him a call, and the guy came. I was like, what's the issue? I was like, this guy's got trying to draw blood on me without gloves on. And he's like, oh, this is terrible. And this guy had to go put the gloves on, and I can just go back. I'm just saying this just, just to, I can imagine.
To highlight the nonchalance of the medical.
The nonchalant, or how laissez-passer, or people just probably take certain things for granted. When the virus initially started, I would say most people were not prepared. Our healthcare services, my wife, when this thing started, my wife was so crazy. She's a kind of type A personality. She was losing it. She wasn't getting any sleep. And I just thought, oh, our healthcare system here is so equipped. We're going to be up to the task. But when we started running out of PPEs, people were freaking out, man.
Yeah.
But right now, I think we have enough. We are not probably there, but we at least are protected in a way, because it's the virus is both droplet precautions. Mm-hmm. It's transmitted by droplets, which means if somebody coughs or speaks in your face.
Yeah.
And contact, which means you have to be gowned up. That's how you see people in space masks and stuff like that, space suits. So I can just imagine back home if the resources are not even there. Even if they are there, they are not enough. If the virus was running rampantly, like with the way it's running here, I just feel bad.
The virus moves at a certain speed that I cannot even explain. That's why I'm saying I feel like Cameroon numbers are flawed. Because there's a story going on, I think it's patient 31. That's the example they've used in, is it South Korea or North Korea? The patient who is just one lady who went into the country with the virus. She went to church. They have plotted the data to explain how that lady potentially could have contaminated 5,000 people. Is that is that even possible?
That's
and you're telling me Cameroon has 800 cases. Multiply that 800. Multiply the 800 by 5,000 per a person, and tell me how many you think will be actually.
That's very possible, because I was reading the New York Times last week. I was reading the New York Times last week, and we have a particular case in the suburbs of Massachusetts, in Boston area, where we had a businessman, very rich guy from South Africa. He had earlier traveled to India in November and went back to South Africa and he traveled to China, beg your pardon, in November.
Yeah.
He had the virus, went to South Africa and stayed for 2 weeks, and came to a bourgeoisie party in the outskirts of Massachusetts, of Boston, and in that party, 250 people. They had a lot of people. They had about 50 people came from New York.
Oh my God!
And surrounding areas, they had people came from many states, maybe about 24 states. And this guy just spread the whole thing there. I mean, before he even arrived in the States, he was having chills and fever. He just thought it was a flu.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it was the virus. The guy had the virus on him. And this was in December. This was late December. The Christmas parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And come to find nearly everybody in that party was infected, had the virus. I think they lost about 24 people died.
Wow.
These are rich folks. These are mostly Caucasians. And these people went back to their communities
and infected.
And were in contact with their churches, their lodges, their, if you can just imagine, just from this guy from South Africa, how the virus went into the community. And so it's very scary.
So that's my problem. When I look at raw data and facts from the data, I am highly, highly drawn to what data says, because that is my 9-to-5 job. I use data to give people insights and information about how their businesses are performing, who to speak to, who not to speak to, who is going to give you money, who's not going to give you money. Geographically in London, put your business here, you're going to get more money. That's what I do. So when I look at Cameroon, I'm going, how are you guys really just cutting and pasting decisions? So if something, for example, happens in America today, and just like the chloroquine effect, Donald Trump gets on the press conference and says one thing about chloroquine. Nobody tries or tests it. They go straight and start buying chloroquine.
And chloroquine
How do you know? How do you know? Exactly. And people started dying.
A drug called chloroquine, and some people would add to it hydroxychloroquine. So chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine. Now this is a common malaria drug. It's also a drug used for strong.
But I know there were trials in some other countries, and some of our patients, we give it to them. But what I've seen, chloroquine and azithromycin, not in every patient, because you have patients who have pre-existing conditions, so probably heart issues, some prevailing heart issues. We couldn't even give them chloroquine. The hydroxychloroquine is very dangerous to these patients.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go into the science of, if you give it to them, it initiates or like it leads them. They can have a heart attack. There's something called a cardiac tamponade, which means their heart goes into the
arrhythmia or something.
Ventricular arrhythmia.
Arrhythmia, I know those terms because I work with medical data. That's why.
So just imagine that there are people who never knew that they even had heart problems, and they just went over the corner and bought hydroxychloroquine and took a bunch of them.
Oh my
just because they were trying to protect themselves from the coronavirus. And you can imagine the side effect. You can imagine what happens if somebody dies of a heart attack. How do you call that? So those are all cases where when doctors were coming out and saying, most of the doctors even received backlash when they were saying it is not prudent for people to go out and self-medicate on hydroxychloroquine.
Of course.
And most of them, but it's time of pandemic, everybody's panicking. So even if your data is showing what you are saying is right, most people don't want to know that you're right. They just want to leave. So, and that is the problem.
See, that's the difference with me, because I just need to put the data, and I stick to what the data is saying. That's why patient 31 in South Korea keeps ringing in my head, and I say that data in Cameroon is wrong, but we can't tell. So for example, Penjo, you live in Douala. Have you spoken to anyone outside Douala? And kind of, I mean, Ephraim, you said you spoke to your mom in Tombel and she said everything's fine. Penjo, have you spoken to other people?
Actually, it's kind of funny. My mom was telling me that at about 6 p.m. they have a lockdown. The military comes around and closes all the drinking spots and everything, and people go in and nobody comes out. But she told me she still goes to the farm. And everything is just,
the farm is good. The farm is still social distancing as long as there's no one in the farm. I mean, Penjo, what are your peers in Cameroon saying?
Well, I live in Yaoundé. I'm not in Douala, so but it's the same question. I mean, it's still the same because Yaoundé and Douala is the same. I think living in Yaoundé, like I told you, it's from the 18th to this day. I've gone downstairs with my house just two times.
Wow.
I've been indoors. It's not because, maybe because I don't have anything to do. My job too is also because everybody pushed their events, their programs. which is okay for me. If I was that kind of person who was going out daily, day-to-day daily bread, I would have maybe known what to say. But I went out today. This is my second day of going out. I went out today to the town. Luckily, it was public holidays. The town was not that full, but you could see people with masks. I was so surprised to see people moving with masks left and right, but the masks that are already also made with not anything. People are making masks now. Yes, they are making masks with even with Ankara and everything. So I'm selling anyway. So today, if I can say, like we're talking here, many things are going the way they are going. I remember the day when they said in Douala, when the government, in as much as the government was not prepared. When you look at what happened in Douala, I remember that the 17th, I think, 17th or so.
Yeah.
When people came from France and they had to isolate them in hotels. Some refused the hotel, some ran away to their families. As we were talking about how it goes to the community.
Yeah.
From that day, I realized that some people, I will not say Cameroon because it's happening everywhere too. Some people too, they are held, they will be held accountable because you cannot come from a place you know that they want to protect you from. If you are sick, distributing to people, you instead run away from that place.
Yeah.
And even if the place is not good, even if they refuse, because myself, I always say, if I come back, if I was not in Cameroon, I come back and they don't even keep me anywhere, I would isolate myself. I spend my money and isolate myself from my family and tell them to wait for 14 days. But these people, the government at least kept them somewhere, but they still left from there. Some complained that the hotels were bad. Come on. For me, that was more like intentionally doing what they did, because that's when you started hearing cases in Bafoussam, because the families came to pick them up in Douala and they ran away with the family, and then from there, those who went to Bafoussam went to Bafoussam with it, and that's how it started spreading also. So the number that we have officially by the minister, honestly, the ones that we have in the cities, in the country, we cannot count. When you look at the way it has gone, we cannot count. And recently, the case in Bamenda where somebody escaped from the hospital and went to Bamenda, to the village in Guy. And that's when they realized that, of course, there's a case in the Northwest. It was somebody, like I read somewhere, it was somebody who left from Yaoundé or Douala from the hospital and traveled. So you can imagine that traveling now in the bus, and then in town in Bamenda, and then to her village. We don't know like the numbers. We can
So just imagine the damage that has caused across the way. Everybody in the bus, everybody in the bus park, everybody who's selling food. Oh my God.
That's why I'm scared. It's scary. When anybody comes around my house, of course I'm not receiving visitors. But when the nanny goes out to the market to buy, and she comes back, she's going straight to the shower.
Yes.
And washing her hands. And the boys, my kids will not greet her, they will not touch her. Yeah. And she knows, I mean, these are the things that we need to do it personally. It's not like somebody will say the government must lock down before I lock myself down.
No.
We know already what is there. So we don't have to be waiting for the government. Like my colleague said, the government is slow, we know. So we cannot be waiting everything every time from them. Of course, they are making progress. Why I'm scared that in the next week or months, we don't know what will happen in Cameroon. Honestly, because the government is not going to be able to handle it. We're trying, but the way people are going about it, and I mean, they have said no bars, no market open after 6 or 4 p.m. For me, that's not really, it doesn't help in any way.
Why after 6 or 4 p.m.? Jean-Paul, what's going on? Why did they put that time? Like, does coronavirus come out only after 6?
Sorry.
What a question. It's not like coronavirus comes out just after 6 o'clock. The government intention here was just to reduce the number of people that are present, because immediately after work, people have the tendency to stop over in the bars, take one for the road. So government thought it wise that if we can ban the nightclubs, we ban drinking after work, then we are going to reduce the number of people that can be in a particular location at a particular time. That was the idea, and so they even went further to reduce the number of people in taxis and in public transport buses, and banning gatherings of more than 50 people. But when you look at these measures, you discover that government is kind of progressive. Let's observe and see. Let's observe and see, because we have a full basket. We have a war going on.
Yeah.
We have a very poor population that live a hand-to-mouth life. They go out today, look for what to eat, and what to eat tomorrow. So if you stop them from going out today, definitely you're going to have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And if personally, I've not been a very big advocate of the lockdown, because I believe that what happens in Europe is not, what works in Europe is not definitely what will work in Africa or in Cameroon.
Yes.
A lockdown will cause a big catastrophe. So like you said earlier, that if they impose a lockdown, people will not respect it. No, it's different. If they impose a lockdown, people cannot respect it. It is not that they will not. It is not their will. They cannot. They simply cannot, because they absolutely. And so at the end of the day, they're going to riot against the police. They're going to riot against the government, and that is what the government doesn't need now. They don't need an uprising. So that's why they're following this progressive way. Let's wait and see. And from what they are communicating, it looks like things are good on their side, because the numbers are not growing astronomically as we expected.
Yeah.
It looks like the number of people that are getting healed by the day are increasing. And it also looks like the system of quarantine, imagine the requisition about 200 to 400 rooms in Olembe. There they kept already 43, and they are sending home 37 as of today. And those that have been there have just been there for about 3 or 4 days. So you can see that the stakes are really smiling towards Cameroon. And I would just like to add that when we make these comparisons, Europe, Africa, America, Africa, we look at the environment too. We look at the diet. We look at the people's immune system. It looks like it has been activated, or it is activated on a day-by-day basis, because they drink very bad water, so their immune system is always on the alert.
Yeah.
And they eat crude food, and they drink also these traditional medicines, and research data is not available on what are the active ingredients in all these that they take that can combine to make them more resilient towards this virus. And you will not also want to keep away this deep-seated belief and in God in Africa, because I think it's even deeper here than elsewhere, although it came from us.
Yeah.
You want to laugh about that, because that is what you hear. I'm on the streets every day, and they say it's not my portion. God is protecting us, and so on and so forth. And they believe in the prophecies, they believe in the revelations, they believe in so on and so forth. So when you combine all those factors, you begin to see that the things may really be different for Africa than had been predicted.
Yeah. So I know relatively, compared to the world in general, relatively Africa's mortality rate is a lot less. That's the first positive thing I'm gathering. We have a lower mortality rate and mobility rates as well. So basically we are seeing people sick, but we're seeing less and less people dying. And we're hearing somewhere in the pipeline that we're also treating people. What's being used to treat people, we don't know, we cannot tell. So many different suggestions have come out from traditional medicine, from, you know, the sort of malaria treatments that are out there. A lot of people have hinted that the chloroquine idea works, but if you're taking it properly, none of that has been evidenced or researched or presented in a factual way that we can all believe. So we're just going to go by, I'm guessing, that Cameroon is doing its best.
But let me precise one thing here, because although we are afraid that government is mixing politics, it's mixing its poor management and its slow nature in trying to cover up, although we are suspecting that, but I want to also add that if people were really falling sick, it would not be for government to hide, because you have the hospital saturated, you have the calls, you have the social media, especially in the cities of Yaoundé and Douala. Social media users are really many. So you really have many people, and you really have the news out there that there are symptoms here, people are sick, and so on and so forth, like it's happening in Europe.
Yeah.
You can't just hide. Europeans can't hide that, because the people are actually falling sick. So there is a difference between getting the virus and falling sick.
Yeah,
and that
definitely.
Yes, and that is where I think we may, if we do mass testing in Cameroon, we may end up with many numbers, but with very few people actually showing the symptoms. And as we move on, we also actually find that some people get infected and they get healed again without even being discovered. So that is a scenario that we may finally end up having in Cameroon. We just pray that the worst doesn't come. But if you want to ask me what if the message we are preaching is going down there to the people, if they are assimilating, if there is a behavior change, it is very slow, it is very little, because even when they talk about masks, they don't know how to use it. Some put it there for fancy, some put it because it has been made compulsory, some put it just to make you know that they are also following the rules, because you see them wearing the mask, they still pick up the gâteaux along the road and the soyas, they open the mask and they eat, they still drink and wear back the same mask, and some wear the same mask for several days. So at the end of the day, the mask is not helping anything.
It's not efficient, is it?
It's not efficient.
Yeah.
And then if you look at what the government is doing, just a few days ago, a communique was leaked but from the Ministry of Education, where the two ministries of basic and secondary education are actually readjusting the school calendar and suggesting that schools may start, although they came later on to say it was a fake. But it shows that the government itself has observed, and they think that they can get things moving again. So for me, we have to put that issue of hiding figures in brackets, and we have to really start thinking about the resistance, the resilience of the population, and the way, because I hear that the virus is undergoing a series of mutations, and the virus too is behaving differently in different environments with different people who have different conditions and so on and so forth, different age groups too. That's another thing they're talking about Africa and Cameroon. So when you combine all of that, we really need to be cautious, and the way we interpret data. And of course, we don't have it, as you rightly said, we don't have data, and we are not going to have it. So we are going to follow this system they call in French tâtonnement. So we just observe, look left and right, and then we see how we are going.
Dorothy, let me ask you a question. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you do you have the numbers for Nigeria, like the number of cases? I didn't look till today.
No, I haven't, but we can check together. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah, because I'm asking this because in Lagos, when you look at how Lagos is like the population of Cameroon. Cameroon is very small.
Yeah.
You know, and in Nigeria, the whole of Nigeria, look at the cases they have. Now, Lagos has also they have also called on lockdown. It's not like, and then they are taking it seriously. It's just I'm asking a question. I asked a question to one person here someday that, of course, everybody is crying that they don't want lockdown because people will cry of hunger. Yeah. Imagine the government, if there was a revolution or crisis in Cameroon, which is political, and everybody comes out to fight the government or strike, the government will call on state of emergency without thinking twice.
Yeah.
Now, but then this one, if they could do the same, people would still survive the way they would survive if it was state of emergency, like political kind of crisis. Now we're trying to pity people, which is good, but we're not also seeing how people are going to get involved in the number of cases in Cameroon is more.
I wanted to say I have statistics here for Nigeria, and it's saying that Nigeria has 288 confirmed cases and 51 recovered and 7 deaths. 7 deaths actually. So that is drastically lower than Cameroon's number. And that's
what
exactly
I'm saying.
what you're saying, yeah.
They had a lockdown, which is helping them. They locked their market, the busiest market in Lagos.
Yeah.
This market, those that busiest market, they locked them down. It's not like they want to pity the people because they are looking for their daily bread. If they keep on doing that, people will get contaminated a lot, and the government will keep spending, and the people will keep suffering, more suffering. So I always ask somebody, would you prefer to have to be poor and maybe beg food, or you want to get sick and die? Those are two things that I always ask people. So
Ephraim,
okay.
What do you have any last thoughts? Just 2 things I want to ask you. I don't know how the Cameroon community around where you are, but I just want to sense check that as a community within Cameroon, the Cameroonians where you are understand what is happening around them and are taking the right precautions. And are you sensing that they have the right messaging? Because we are the only people who can speak to our family members back home.
Yeah, they are, and they've been reaching out to most of us that are in the healthcare fields, the doctors, the nurses, to ask for advice. We have Facebook groups, we have WhatsApp groups, our meetings as well.
Yeah.
In the state of Louisiana, those in the state of Texas, because Texas is the next state.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of families and friends as well that are interchanging ideas and also giving piece of advice on people, a good bit of people checking on mostly those that are working in the healthcare field to ask if they are okay, if they are well, if they need anything. For example, some states are still open. They are not in drastic lockdown per se, so they can buy stuff and ship them. But you were asking earlier about herd immunity, and I think Jean-Paul also was talking about the number of cases being low. There was a study had been going on for a few years before the virus. Immunologists and some doctors have carried out studies on the effect of the vaccine, the BCG vaccine, that most of us took when we were kids. And I think there was a rampant case of tuberculosis back in most African countries, especially Cameroon, in the 70s.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were dying from that. And the BCG vaccine, which is very cheap today, was administered when we were in primary school. I think I probably took it in class 1 or class 2.
Yeah.
And studies have been done over a period of time in poorer countries like India, South America, and some African countries. And they found that the BCG vaccine was not only protecting people from the TB, but was also protecting those who took BCG from other infections.
Wow.
And they extrapolated that it is possible that those who took the BCG vaccine have a higher probability of withstanding even viruses like the coronavirus. So when this initially started, when the rumor was going around that Black folks don't die from this, it was from some of those studies. The other thing is, like I said in the post that I wrote, that you read, those that have pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
Those that have pre-existing conditions are really those, for example, in the hospital where I work, those that are really suffering from this virus. Like I said, long-term smokers, those that have smoked for 20 years or so.
Wow.
Those with respiratory problems, diabetes, hypertension, asthma. Those are those that are really dying, that we see dying every day. If you go in and check what they had or what conditions they had, all what I just named, that those will come up. So back home, the other thing I wanted to add was back home, most of our food, I know things have changed so much that we import most of our food, but most people still eat what we grow back home.
Yeah.
Basic food stuff, vegetables, tomatoes, all this stuff, oranges, mangoes, and stuff like that. are still very, very natural. They come from
organic, very organic food,
organic,
healthy, yeah.
So most that strengthens our immune systems as well.
Yeah.
It plays a critical role. We might do it subconsciously back home. People might just eat without really knowing, but that plays a role in keeping people healthy back home. So so far, but if things start changing and people keep importing a lot of food because that comes from abroad. I mean, I know it's food and people eat this. Most of them are genetically modified.
Yeah.
And this plays a role in our immune system as well.
Yeah.
And the more we consume these foods, the more we expose ourselves to getting sick as well. So I'll just keep sensitized, people back home, friends, just to stay safe, just take the simple precautions. And I think everything will be fine. The other thing I wanted to add before I close is, for the last 2 days, we are actually seeing here in Louisiana, especially in New Orleans, it looks like we are flattening the curve.
That is amazing news. That is incredible.
Yeah, it looks like we are flattening the curve. It looks like the social distancing is the policies that were placed, because our governor was very proactive. The mayor of our city was they were very proactive.
Mm-hmm.
They worked with experts and they came on and they gave us the news raw without trying to shortchange the populace. In our hospital, we've actually seen in the past 2 days, the number of admissions, those that actually have the virus, is down.
Wow.
Significantly.
Yeah.
The number of patients in the ICU on vents is down. And the number of patients on the floor with the virus is down as well. So we are still very cautious, but we are still observing. We are still staying focused, like I would say, because you never know.
Yeah.
And that's just some good news, and it's still encouraging people to observe the rules. Don't break them, because if you break them, you just start all over again. So I think that's really encouraging so people can know that this actually has an effect.
Yeah.
On what is going on. It actually has an effect, because we can see it on the floor where, I still probably lost 2 patients yesterday, but I think it's not like in a rush like the past 3 weeks where every day you come to work, you probably lose about 4 or 5 people. So, my name is Ephraim Jiki, Cameroonian by birth. Been living in the States for 17 years. I graduated from the University of Boya, the master's in biochemistry, then came to the States to do a PhD, and went to nursing school. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 10 years. A senior nurse, I'm a charge nurse, also train other nurses. That's what I do, and I live in New Orleans, state of Louisiana, in the south of the United States. City, especially in our city of New Orleans, in the month of January to the end of February, we have something called a carnival, which is it's called Mardi Gras, which is like a parade where people go out, and we are actually realizing that the parade this year, those who went to the parade actually contracted the virus there, because you have the influx of people together in groups, and the floats are going down the road, and people are just right there in your face. So it took a while for the virus to start actually manifesting. People to actually get sick, but nobody knew, because even the federal government had intelligence when this virus was spreading in China in November. The Chinese didn't let, I'm not going to blame the Chinese, but the system they have is they control the information, nothing goes out. If it was contained in China, it wouldn't have been this bad.
Yeah.
If you look at states like New York, the way people live in New York, the city of New York is about 10 million people live in New York. If you can imagine the total surface area of New York, I think it's slightly larger than Yaoundé, but they have 10 million people living. The way people live in New York, they live in buildings, apartment buildings.
Oh my God, that is London. That is real life London.
People live on top of each other. So you can imagine the the virulence at which the virus spread in New York.
Yeah.
So that's
you know what? I heard a sensitive information yesterday. I was in a corporate meeting, and we were talking about launching a campaign here in the UK to support small organizations get PPE. And someone actually said there that it might take another 18 months for this to go away. And I literally almost cried.
Yeah, because that is like the projected period, the projected time for a vaccine.
Yes.
All the crews and all the different groups that are working on vaccine development right now, the projected time is early 2022. So approximately 2 years.
Benjo, imagine if we're locked in the house like this till 2022. I'll go mad.
But
oh my goodness.
But I think before that, I'm highly optimistic. I don't think people can live in these conditions.
Yeah.
I think most of the rules are going to be lax maybe in the next month or so. I still believe that if they actually, there's probably going to be a panacea. It might not be the cure.
Yes.
So most people are focusing on the cure, but it's probably going to be something that's going to alleviate a lot of people. It's just like the flu or the cold.
Yeah.
That people take something, but they still have the flu. So,
but the fear is, while you're talking about the flu, there's another fear just in the data that we are looking at now, that people have just come out of COVID-19 and the flu season is coming.
Yeah.
So we're all worried what the flu is going to do to the people who have already had COVID, plus people who haven't.
And you expect that everything is going to be fine. So basically, at this point, I'm happy. I thank God that I've not been sick. I think I'm healthy. So, I just forge along, even despite all what we've seen. I think I was just talking to my wife or somebody that probably most of us are probably going to come out of it and need some help, some psychological help.
I know, because you guys see things every day. I only watch the news. I watch CNN and I go to my kitchen and cry. I watch CNN and I cry.
Especially when you see some of our patients, people die by themselves and they don't have family there.
Oh dear.
You see them just waste away and stuff like that. So it gets you sometimes. So
yeah.
But you just forge along. You get to the next patient. So
touch wood, Ephraim. Touch wood. You'll be fine and you come out fine. And we thank you so much for joining. If you have a minute, just hang around while the other guys give their conclusions as well. But I'm going to come to you, Jean-Paul. Can you tell us what you do, round up in a few statements, and then tell us, the role you are playing with COVID, with regards to COVID-19 and your community.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. I'm Jean-Paul Afumbom, Cameroonian from the West, precisely in Boyo division. I am an environmental engineer specialized in water and sanitation. I have a Master's of Engineering in Water and Sanitation. I'm the CEO of a small startup called Afu Agro Dream Farms that practically does master shepherding in realizing farm projects, agro business projects. So we have people who like to have farms, who have to create farms, invest in agriculture. They don't have the time, they don't have the skills. So we actually provide those services for them, particularly with the rural masses. Those who work in the farms are those who have not had the chance to be in school. Those who work in the farms are those who are dropouts. Those who work in the farms are those that life has not been fair to them. So we actually are on the side of masses on a daily basis. So we know how to perceive things, we see things their own way, and we know exactly what to tell them about these things. That's why we could not remain indifferent. So just like Ephraim was saying, that there are lots of mutations and that environmental differences and so on and so forth, genes play a role in what actually obtains as symptoms. We are hoping that the population in one way or the other is going to hear the message. They're going to continue. We are also hoping that the government is going to step up, and we are praying too that the virus, as it is showing some positive signs so far, that the hecatomb that was predicted should not come. We are really praying that it shouldn't come, because if it comes, I am afraid things may really be bad for us.
Touch wood, Cameroon will not get to any worse position than it is already, because 800 is, 800 is alarming. When we don't even have a population near Nigeria, and we have 800, and Nigeria is boasting of 200. For the first time, I want to be behind Nigeria. I want to proudly be behind Nigeria, please. No one stress. Nigeria can lead. We can stay behind. We're happy.
The statistics actually show that we are fifth in Africa. So among the 52 nations that have been touched so far in Africa, we are the fifth.
Don't give Penjo a heart attack. Penjo is not going to go downstairs anymore. Penjo is going to eat upstairs.
So we continue to call on people to take their responsibility. Actually, they have to take their responsibility. They have to listen more.
Ephraim, you're on mute. If you're saying something, you're on mute.
They have to listen to the facts. So we are hoping that the population is going to at least rise above their fears and then really tackle things the way they are, and also call the government to accountability, because if we had more time, we will also see this cacophony that is existing within the government, banning fundraising initiatives, help initiatives left and right. So we really think that we are left on a tight corner, and we have to save ourselves somehow.
Okay. No, sorry, my husband just handed me a statistics here about UK. I don't know if you can see this. 980 deaths in the UK today.
Oh,
980. Jesus. And people still think this is a joke. Are you serious? Wow. Thank you, Jean-Paul. Thanks, Ephraim. Thank you, Penjo.
Thank
you, Christabel wasn't able to join us, but it was so good.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah,
nice meeting you too.
In person. Social media, we get to meet you on social media, and then we get to meet on here. So it's really good.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Have a good one. Have a good evening.
Stay safe, Ephraim. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Penjo.
Bye, Penjo. See you later. Bye, guys.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Other people have said this is the time in quarantine to be able to do a lot of different activities, just so you don't get really frustrated by just being home or be bored out of the routine of quarantine. But for some of us, it's actually really hard, because though we're working from home, we are still working. Like, it's really demanding. Plus, we have all our children home and have to be homeschooled and managed by us as parents. So it puts a lot of pressure on our deadlines, on our deliverables, and on the things that we have to do to be able to still meet up with the requirements of our careers. So it's been quite a challenging time for us across the globe, actually, because everywhere is potentially shut down. But then that's why I took upon myself to sense check with people from the same community as myself, and probably would extend this slightly further. But in the meantime, I want to focus on Cameroonians across the diaspora and see how they are coping with the whole COVID-19 pandemic. We're talking to those who work in the medical sphere, who work in the media, who work in all the different parts of the economy, churning machines in different organizations and institutions, and make sure that we have an accurate understanding of where the world is at, and we're communicating this understanding across the globe, because it is our responsibility, like citizens of the world, but also citizens of the countries and the continents that we come from, who are very vocal on social media to drive the right narrative. And that narrative is that we understand COVID-19 is deadly. It's a pandemic. Stay safe, stay in quarantine. You're saving your life and you're saving someone else's life. And more importantly, you are stopping the virus from moving from one place to another.